Most people don't fail because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity. They fail because they underestimate the quiet power of the small choices they make when nobody is watching. The extra scroll before bed. The skipped workout because it doesn't seem to matter. The harmless snack. The delayed decision. You tell yourself it's nothing. But what if everything you are frustrated about right now is not the result of one big mistake, but thousands of tiny ones you never noticed adding up? Think about your life as it exists today. Your body, your income, your confidence, your habits. None of it appeared overnight. It was built slowly, invisibly, through repeated actions you barely remember choosing. And that's uncomfortable to admit, because it means the problem isn't luck. It's not the system. It's not even motivation. It's something far more subtle. It's the direction you've been drifting in, one small step at a time. Most people live as if change only happens through dramatic moments. A life-changing decision, a sudden breakthrough, a burst of motivation that flips everything around. But those moments are rare, and waiting for them is one of the most dangerous strategies you can adopt. Because while you're waiting, life is still moving. You're still choosing. You're still compounding something, whether you like it or not. Imagine an airplane leaving the runway. If its nose is tilted just a few degrees off course, nobody notices at first. The passengers feel normal. The flight seems fine. But hours later, that tiny misalignment determines whether the plane lands in the right city or in the wrong country. The same thing is happening in your life right now. Tiny choices, repeated daily, are quietly deciding where you'll end up years from now. This is where most people misunderstand success. They look at someone fit, wealthy, disciplined, or confident and assume that person did something extraordinary, something extreme, something they themselves couldn't maintain. But the truth is far less glamorous and far more powerful. Those people didn't rely on intensity. They relied on consistency. They didn't make radical changes. They made small ones and stuck with them long enough for time to do the heavy lifting. There's a reason bad habits feel harmless at first. Their consequences are delayed. Skip one workout, and nothing happens. Eat poorly today, and the mirror doesn't change tomorrow. Procrastinate for a week, and your life doesn't collapse. So your brain concludes it's safe. But the same delay exists on the other side. Read 10 pages a day, and you don't feel smarter immediately. Save a little money, and you don't feel rich. Wake up early for a week, and nothing magical occurs, so you quit. And that's the trap. We judge actions by their short-term payoff, even though life rewards long-term accumulation. Every habit you repeat is like placing a vote for the person you are becoming. One vote doesn't decide the election, but thousands of them do. And whether you realize it or not, you are voting every single day. This is the core idea behind the compound effect. The principle is simple, almost boring on the surface. Small, smart choices, repeated consistently over time, lead to massive results. Small, poor choices, repeated consistently over time, lead to disaster. The difference between extraordinary success and quiet regret is rarely talent. It's direction plus consistency multiplied by time. But knowing this intellectually is not enough. Most people have heard some version of this idea before. What they don't understand is why it's so difficult to apply. Why do we keep choosing short-term comfort over long-term growth, even when we know better? The answer lies in how we are wired. The human brain is designed to prioritize immediate rewards. It wants comfort now, relief now, pleasure now. Long-term benefits feel abstract. Future consequences don't trigger urgency. So unless something hurts right now, we assume it doesn't matter. That's why destructive habits are easy to start and hard to stop, and why constructive habits are hard to start and easy to abandon. This creates what feels like an unfair imbalance. Bad habits reward you first and punish you later. Good habits punish you first and reward you later. And most people give up during that early phase where effort is high and results are invisible. Picture two people starting at the same place, same age, same background, same potential. One decides to make tiny improvements, nothing extreme, just slightly better choices each day. A little more discipline with money, a little more intention with time, a little more care with health. The other keeps doing what's comfortable, not reckless, not destructive, just average. For months, even years, there's almost no visible difference. They look the same. They live the same. But slowly, something starts to separate them. Opportunities, confidence, energy, results, and eventually, the gap becomes impossible to ignore. What's dangerous is that this gap doesn't announce itself early. There's no alarm that tells you you're drifting. No warning sign that says, this will matter later. So most people wake up years down the line confused about how they got there. Overweight, broke, unfulfilled, feeling behind, and they assume they need a dramatic fix. A radical change. A complete life overhaul. But trying to fix years of compounded neglect with sudden intensity often backfires. Extreme plans collapse because they rely on motivation instead of systems. And motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Systems, on the other hand, are what carry you when motivation disappears. This is why tracking becomes so powerful. You cannot change what you are not aware of. Most people think they know how they spend their time, their money, their energy. They don't. Memory lies. Feelings distort reality. Only measurement tells the truth. When you track something, you bring it out of the shadows. You turn an unconscious pattern into a conscious choice. This can be uncomfortable, because once you see the truth, you lose the excuse of ignorance. You realize how often small leaks are draining your progress. The extra hours lost to distraction. The mindless spending. The habits you thought were occasional but are actually daily. Awareness feels heavy at first, but it's also empowering, because you can't steer a ship you're not paying attention to. Once you see your patterns, the next step is choice. Not huge, dramatic choices. Small ones. Decisions that feel almost insignificant in the moment, but made deliberately, consistently, repeated until they become automatic. This is where momentum begins. Success is not built on willpower alone. Willpower is limited. It fades when you're tired, stressed, or emotional. Momentum is different. Momentum carries you forward, even when effort drops. It's the feeling of not wanting to break the streak, of identifying as someone who follows through, of letting habits pull you forward instead of pushing yourself every day. Momentum starts small. So small it feels pointless, but once it exists, it becomes one of the most powerful forces in your life. The first few steps feel heavy, but after a while, stopping feels harder than continuing. Environment plays a massive role here. Most people try to change themselves without changing what surrounds them. But your environment silently shapes your behavior. It nudges you towards certain actions without asking for permission. If temptation is always within reach, you rely on self-control. If the environment supports your goals, discipline becomes easier. Look at the people you spend time with. Behaviors are contagious. Attitudes spread. Standards rise or fall depending on who surrounds you. If everyone around you normalizes laziness, distraction, or complaining, it becomes harder to aim higher. Not because you're weak, but because humans adapt to their tribe. Conversely, being around people who value growth, discipline, and progress raises your baseline without effort. The same applies to your physical space. What's visible gets used. What's hidden gets ignored. Small adjustments in your environment can produce massive behavioral shifts without relying on motivation. Another hidden force shaping your life is the stories you tell yourself. Not dramatic lies, but subtle narratives. I'm just not good at this. I'll start later. It doesn't really matter. These thoughts feel harmless, but repeated over time, they become identity. And identity drives behavior. Once you see yourself as someone who always quits, procrastinates, or struggles, you unconsciously act in ways that confirm that story. Changing behavior is hard if identity stays the same, but identity itself is shaped by repeated action. Every small win becomes evidence. Every kept promise reinforces a new self-image. This is why consistency beats intensity. Intensity feels impressive. Consistency changes who you believe you are. But consistency requires patience. And patience is rare in a world trained to expect instant results. We want progress we can see, validation we can feel, proof that effort is working. When that proof doesn't show up quickly, doubt creeps in. And doubt is often the moment people quit. The truth is, the most important phase of growth is the phase where nothing seems to be happening, where results are still underground, where effort feels invisible. This is where most people stop. And this is why so few ever reach extraordinary outcomes. If you stay through that phase, something shifts. The results eventually surface. And when they do, they look sudden to outsiders. But you know better. You know they were years in the making. At some point in your life, you will either be grateful for the small disciplined choices you made, or you will wish you had made them. Time will pass either way. The question is what it will be compounding for you. This is not about perfection. Perfection is a trap. It creates all or nothing thinking. Miss one day, and you quit entirely. What matters is direction, not flawless execution. Occasional missteps don't destroy progress. Consistent neglect does. You don't need to change everything at once. In fact, trying to do so almost guarantees failure. You need to choose one small area, one habit, one behavior, and commit to improving it slightly. Then protect that habit long enough for it to become part of who you are. The compound effect does not ask for heroic effort. It asks for humility, for patience, for the willingness to trust a process that doesn't reward you immediately. But if you do, it gives you something far more valuable than quick wins. It gives you control over the direction of your life. And once you realize that every day is quietly shaping your future, it becomes impossible to see your choices as meaningless ever again. There comes a moment when people realize that waiting for motivation is like waiting for perfect weather before starting a journey. It feels reasonable, but it keeps you stuck. Motivation is emotional. It rises when things feel exciting and disappears when things feel difficult. The people who change their lives don't wait to feel ready. They build routines that work even when they feel tired, bored, or uninspired. This is where the idea of commitment quietly replaces motivation. Commitment means you decide in advance who you are going to be, regardless of how you feel in the moment. It's waking up and following through because you said you would, not because it feels good, not because today is special, but because this is how you operate now. The most dangerous enemy of consistency is not failure. It's complacency. Failure is obvious. It hurts. It forces reflection. Complacency is silent. It whispers that everything is fine, that you can skip today, that you deserve a break, that you'll catch up later. And slowly, without resistance, your standards lower, not drastically, just enough to matter over time. This is why success often collapses after early wins. When things start improving, people relax. They stop doing the small things that created progress. They assume results will continue on autopilot, but the compound effect works both ways. What built momentum can also erode it if neglected. There is no neutral. You are either compounding upward or downward. Even maintaining requires effort, because the world constantly pulls you toward distraction, comfort, and average behavior. This is why champions protect their habits aggressively, not because they're obsessed, but because they understand how fragile momentum can be. They don't rely on hope. They rely on structure. Structure removes decision fatigue. When your day is filled with constant choices, your energy drains quickly. What should I eat? When should I work? Should I train today? Every decision taxes your mental reserves. Habits eliminate these questions. They turn choices into defaults. And defaults are powerful. The more you automate the right behaviors, the less you have to fight yourself. Discipline becomes something you practice less, not more. And this frees mental space for creativity, focus, and growth. Another overlooked element is delayed gratification. Most people say they want long-term success, but their daily actions reveal a different priority. Immediate comfort, instant entertainment, short-term relief. The ability to delay gratification is not about suffering. It's about choosing a better future over a slightly easier present. Every time you resist a small impulse, you strengthen this muscle. And like any muscle, it grows through repetition, not intensity. Saying no once doesn't change much. Saying no consistently reshapes your character. But resistance alone is not enough. You also need direction. Without a clear target, discipline becomes draining. You need to know what you're building toward, not a vague wish, but a defined outcome. something specific enough to guide daily choices. Clarity creates alignment. When your actions align with a clear goal, effort feels meaningful. When they don't, even small tasks feel exhausting. This is why people burn out while being busy. They're moving, but not in a direction that matters to them. And once direction is clear, feedback becomes essential. You need signals that tell you whether you're moving closer or drifting away. This is where reflection comes in, not overthinking, not obsessing. Simple, honest evaluation. What worked? What didn't? What can I adjust slightly? The compound effect thrives on small adjustments. You don't overhaul the system. You tweak it. 1% better here. One habit refined there. Over time, these refinements stack. There will be periods when progress stalls, when effort feels flat, when enthusiasm fades. This is normal. Growth is not linear. It moves in waves. Plateaus are not failures. They are consolidation phases. Your job during these periods is not to quit, but to hold the line. This is where identity does its deepest work. When progress is slow, identity keeps you consistent. You don't act because you're seeing results. You act because this is who you are now. Someone who shows up, someone who follows through, someone who trusts the process. Eventually, something changes. The habits that once required effort start to feel natural. The behaviors you used to resist become part of your routine. This is when the compound effect becomes visible. Results accelerate. Confidence grows. Opportunities expand. People will call it luck, timing, a breakthrough. They won't see the quiet years of consistency that made it possible. And that's fine. You don't need recognition. You need results. But with growth comes responsibility. As results compound, so does influence. Your behavior now affects not only you, but those around you. Your standards become a reference point. Your habits set an example, whether you intend them to or not. This is why self-leadership matters. You don't improve just to improve your own life. You improve to raise what's possible in your environment. When others see what consistency produces, it challenges their assumptions about what's achievable. At the end of the day, the compound effect is not about doing more. It's about doing the right things, in small doses, for a long time. It's about respecting time as a multiplier rather than an enemy. It's about understanding that the future is built quietly, daily, without drama. You don't need a new personality. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need extreme discipline. You need awareness, intention, and patience. So start small. Smaller than your ego wants. Choose one habit that aligns with the person you want to become. Track it. Protect it. Repeat it. When you miss a day, don't spiral. Resume. Momentum is forgiving if you return quickly. Understand this deeply. The quality of your life in 5 years is being shaped by what you do tonight. By what you choose when nobody is watching. By the habits that feel too small to matter. They matter, and if you commit to letting time work for you instead of against you, the results won't just change what you have. They'll change who you are. That's the real power of the compound effect.